Imagine waking up one morning as a millionaire and going to bed that same night completely broke. No war, no warning, just a single terrifying day that erased $200 billion and threw America into a decade of hunger, dust, and despair. This is the story of the Great Depression, and what you're about to discover will shock you because the signs were there all along, but nobody wanted to see them. Let's rewind to 1922. World War I is over. The economy is absolutely booming, and America is partying like there's no tomorrow. Factories that used to make tanks are now churning out toasters, vacuum cleaners, and refrigerators that make ice boxes look like they're from the Stone Age. New York's skyline is shooting up faster than you can imagine. Jazz music is everywhere, loud and electric, and honestly, nobody fully understands how any of it works, but who cares because money is flowing. People genuinely believe the good times will last forever. Even the smartest economists are saying, trust me, this decade is absolutely roaring. The engines of growth are humming beautifully. Henry Ford's assembly line innovation is producing Model T cars in 90 minutes instead of 12 hours. Cars are flooding the streets. Auto plants can't keep up with demand. Oil companies, steel factories, rubber manufacturers, every connected industry is getting pulled into this incredible economic slipstream. The American economy isn't just growing, it's revving at full throttle. Cities are glowing with electricity and luxury. America falls head over heels in love with gadgets, especially radios. By 1929, 10 million homes have radios, which means 10 million families are listening to Al Jolson and about 30 different soap advertisements in glorious AM static. But here's the twist. While cities are throwing the party of the century, rural America can't even get through the door. Farmers who got rich during the war are now watching prices collapse. They borrow money to buy shiny new tractors, thinking technology will save them, but those tractors just help them go bankrupt slightly faster. Meanwhile, urban America discovers its new favorite hobby, buying stuff they absolutely cannot afford. Welcome to the birth of Buy Now, Pay Later. Want a radio? Finance it. A car? Finance it. Stock in a company that makes hats for dogs? Definitely finance it. Banks are thrilled with this innovation and offer installment plans to literally anyone with a pulse. It's the financial equivalent of proposing marriage after 2 dates. But the real madness is happening on Wall Street. The stock market becomes Disneyland for adults. Margin loans let anyone buy $100 worth of stock with just $10 down. The other $90, who cares? It's the future. Stocks only go up, right? Even your barber is giving investment advice. Trust me, kid, utilities are hot right now. I made a killing in stocks, but you're still cutting hair for a living. Yes, but spiritually I'm a tycoon. You know something's deeply wrong when your barber, your butcher, and probably your dog are all giving stock tips. Shoeshine boys are pitching can't-miss investments to actual bankers. A bellboy tells a Vanderbilt to dump railroads and go all in on pencils. Between 1924 and 1929, the Dow Jones quadruples. Stock prices break free from any connection to reality. Fundamentals? Profits? Why look at boring numbers when you can just ride the vibes? This line is going up, and so is my self-esteem. Companies get creative too. They create holding companies that own other holding companies that own absolutely nothing. It's just layers of nothing wrapped in stock market hype. A few smart people try to sound the alarm. Economist Roger Babson warns in 1929 that a crash is coming. Wall Street's response? Buy more stock and tell Roger to go touch grass. Jazz bands play louder. Dollar bills rain from the sky. Nobody can hear the warning over the sound of cash registers and pure optimism. Meanwhile, behind all the champagne and jazz, cracks are forming. Rural debt is climbing. Consumer debt is ballooning. The economy is partying on the edge of a cliff, and nobody's checking if the ground beneath them can actually hold the weight. But hey, don't worry, it's 1929. What could possibly go wrong? October 29th, 1929. America woke up rich and went to bed broke. That day goes down in history as Black Tuesday, the day the stock market didn't just fall, It performed a flawless 10-meter dive straight into concrete. The Dow plummeted. Ticker tapes are spitting out red numbers like they're possessed. Phones are ringing non-stop. Men in suits are screaming. Traders are fainting. One guy reportedly has a heart attack, recovers, looks at his portfolio, and has another heart attack. $14 billion of wealth vanished in a single day. Gone. Adjusted for inflation, that's over $200 billion. Not monopoly money. Real homes, real savings, college funds, hopes and dreams, all gone. Outside the stock exchange, crowds gather in stunned silence. Some people hold hands, some cry, others just stare at the ground trying to understand how an entire economy tripped over its own shoelaces. The Roaring Twenties hadn't just ended. They face-planted into a brick wall while carrying everyone's retirement plan. And that was just the beginning. The crash triggered a devastating chain reaction. First came the margin calls. Remember all those people who bought stocks with borrowed money? Put $10 down, get $100 worth of shares? Well, now the market has tanked and brokers want that other $90 immediately. Investors scramble, but most have nothing left to repay. Paper fortunes vanish overnight. People who were rich on Monday are bankrupt by Thursday. Bankers who spent the summer drinking martinis are now sitting in their offices staring at balance sheets like they're written in ancient Greek. And then come the banks. Oh, the banks. These grand institutions, pillars of trust with marble floors and oak desks. Turns out they're built on worthless paper and blind optimism. As the stock market implodes, banks can't get their loans back, so they do the obvious thing. They collapse. And the people? They run. Not jog, not briskly walk. They run in pure panic. Bank runs break out like wildfire. Crowds surge outside local branches, banging on locked doors, screaming for their savings. Inside, tellers try desperately to calm them down. Everyone, please. Your money is completely safe. Okay, not completely safe. Entire families lose everything. Grandpa's bonds become worthless. Aunt Margaret's life savings disappear. Little Timmy's piggy bank is still full, but only because nobody has the heart to tell him he's now the wealthiest person in the household. The disaster doesn't stop at America's shores. U.S. banks, panicking, call in their overseas loans. European economies, already barely held together with duct tape after World War I, get thrown into a blender. Germany's fragile recovery collapses completely. Britain wobbles dangerously. Global trade, once the great artery of prosperity, chokes and falls by half in just 3 years. Half. And yet, amidst all the panic comes the denial. Newspapers print sunny headlines like market adjusts as investors take profits, right below a photo of a man pawning his wedding ring to buy bread. Politicians insist the worst is over. Bankers in silk vests smile nervously into microphones delivering the financial version of, "We're totally fine. Nothing's on fire here." President Herbert Hoover appears on radio broadcasts calm as ever, assuring the American people that the economy is fundamentally sound. Meanwhile, millions of families sit at empty dinner tables wondering which part of that sentence is supposed to help them. The system doesn't stop. It just staggers forward, broken, clueless, pretending everything will magically fix itself. The crash wasn't the bottom, it was just the beginning. And what waited below? That's where things get truly dark. By 1931, the music is completely gone. The lights are off. The party is over. What comes next isn't silence. It's the sound of factories grinding to a halt, of fathers whispering apologies they never thought they'd have to say, of America exhaling all at once and realizing it has nothing left to breathe in. Unemployment soars to 25%. 1 in every 4 Americans who wants to work simply cannot find a job. Jobs vanish like smoke. Detroit, once the industrial crown jewel of America, watches its auto plants shut down one by one. Production collapses by 75%. The great machines stop turning. The lights dim. Men who once assembled the American dream now stand outside factory gates and wait. For what? They don't even know. Cities sag under the crushing weight of human need. Bread lines, endless and eerily quiet, snake through downtown streets. Mothers line up at dawn for a bowl of thin soup. Children look on, too young to understand why breakfast has become a luxury. Teachers report students fainting in class, not from boredom but from hunger. They haven't eaten in days. America isn't starving metaphorically, it's starving literally. Desperation creeps into every room of every home. Banks have failed. Savings are gone. Human dignity is wearing thin. The suicide rate surges so dramatically that newspapers stop printing obituaries because they simply can't keep up. Behind every statistic is a name. Behind every name is someone who once believed that this country would take care of them. Marriage rates collapse. Birth rates fall. The future becomes something people actively avoid talking about. Who can dream of weddings and children when you can't even guarantee dinner tonight? And just when it seems things couldn't possibly get worse, the sky turns black. In the Great Plains, years of aggressive farming have stripped the land completely bare. When the rain stops, the soil cracks, then come the winds. Dust storms sweep across the heartland, towering walls of dirt, choking, biblical in scale. They call them black blizzards. And these storms don't just cover the ground, they blot out the sun entirely. Crops get buried alive. Livestock suffocate. Homes fill with dust. Families cough through the night and wake up coated in the very earth that used to feed them. Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas, millions of people flee. They pack everything they own into broken-down cars and drive west, chasing desperate rumors of jobs and land that hasn't yet turned to sand. Their signs read California or bust, but for most, it's just bust. In Washington, President Hoover tries to hold the center together. He encourages volunteerism, offers modest relief programs. He even launches the Hoover Dam, an incredible engineering marvel. But it can't feed the starving families in Chicago or shelter the homeless in St. Louis. He refuses large-scale federal aid, calls it dangerous, calls it un-American. But by then, people have stopped listening. His name becomes shorthand for suffering. Hoovervilles, shantytowns made of scrap metal and cardboard, Hoover blankets, newspapers used for warmth, Hoover flags, empty pockets turned inside out. His legacy isn't just concrete and engineering, it's cold, hunger, and dust. Then something cracks in the American spirit. Summer of 1932. Thousands of World War I veterans, desperate and forgotten, march to Washington. They've been promised bonuses for their military service, but those bonuses aren't due for decades. They need them now. They build a tent city outside the Capitol and wait peacefully. Congress says no. Hoover says no. And then the army comes with weapons drawn. Tear gas gets fired into crowds of veterans. Camps get burned. Families flee into the smoke. The government has literally turned its weapons on its own war heroes. For the first time, Americans watch in complete disbelief, not just at what's happening, but at who they've become as a nation. Radicalism spreads like wildfire. Socialist rallies multiply. Communist recruitment surges, not because people believe in the theory, but because capitalism has left them with nothing but hunger and broken promises. Crime surges dramatically. Bank robbers like John Dillinger and Bonnie and Clyde aren't seen as villains. They're seen as folk heroes, people who strike back at the institutions that betrayed everyone else. America isn't just broke, it's fundamentally broken. And yet even then, something holds together. Not belief, not optimism, but pure human endurance. People don't give up. They migrate across the country. They stand in endless lines. They hold their families close. They survive. Not because they're certain things will get better, but because they have absolutely no other choice. The question remains, in a country that once promised endless growth and prosperity, what's left when the growth stops? And who, if anyone, can lead them out of this wreckage? By March 1933, Franklin Delano Roosevelt stands at the podium for his presidential inauguration. Millions of desperate Americans lean in close to their radios. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself, he says. Not gold, not banks, not even dust. Just fear. It's more than a speech. It's the first deep breath the country has taken in years. Roosevelt doesn't waste a single moment. Within weeks, young men in threadbare clothes are handed shovels, tents, and most importantly, purpose. The Civilian Conservation Corps puts them to work building America back. You're here to plant trees and save the country. In that order? Yes, in exactly that order. The Works Progress Administration follows soon after. Millions get hired to build roads, bridges, schools, post offices. They're not just rebuilding infrastructure, they're rebuilding human pride and dignity. People who once stood in bread lines now stand on scaffolding, lifting steel beams into the sky. In the Tennessee Valley, FDR launches the TVA. Massive dams go up. Lights flicker on for the first time. Whole towns that have lived in darkness for generations begin to glow with electricity. Families gather around radios, not because they can finally afford one, but because for the first time ever, they have electricity to plug one in. Slowly, but unmistakably, life begins to stir again. GDP starts rising. Unemployment creeps downward bit by bit. The dust settles both literally and figuratively. People dare to imagine a future again. But FDR doesn't stop at just creating jobs. He wants to fix the entire machine, not just oil it temporarily, so he builds new rules for the system. The SEC gets created to keep Wall Street from doing Wall Street things ever again. The FDIC gets established to protect people's money from disappearing into thin air. Banks reopen, but this time people aren't running in to withdraw everything in a panic. They're depositing money quietly, hopefully, cautiously optimistic. Then comes Social Security. It doesn't make anyone rich. It doesn't need to. It simply says, you matter, we'll remember you, you won't have to work until you literally collapse from exhaustion. It's not flashy, but it's absolutely monumental in what it represents. Even the arts get a job under Roosevelt. The Federal Arts Project pays painters, photographers, and writers to capture the soul of a recovering nation. One photograph, Migrant Mother by Dorothea Lange, becomes the defining face of the entire era. Her eyes don't say we're saved, they say we're surviving, and that's enough for now. Hollywood chimes in too. People pack into theaters to watch The Wizard of Oz, where a gray, depressing world transforms into glorious color. In the very middle of a depression, Americans still dare to dream, maybe even more than ever before. Cities start buzzing with life again. Restaurants reopen their doors. Radios play swing music. And if you squint just a little, the skyline looks like it's rising once more toward the sky. In the distance, factories start humming again, but this time they're not making consumer goods. They're making helmets, boots, ammunition. The world is shifting once again. And America, battered and bruised America, is starting to stir not just for economic recovery, but for something much bigger on the horizon. The Great Depression doesn't end with a celebration or a parade. It ends with hard work, with blistered hands and tired backs, with legislation, with hope, and yes, with a little bit of jazz music, with a nation that had completely collapsed, choosing piece by piece to rise again from the ashes. But as America stands back up and dusts itself off, it doesn't realize that something else is already forming on the horizon. Something darker, something louder, something global. And this time, the entire world is about to feel its impact. If this story of how America collapsed and then clawed its way back moved you, if it made you think differently about economic crashes and human resilience, then do me a favor right now. Hit that like button, because it tells YouTube to share this story with more people who need to understand history. Subscribe to this channel because we're diving deep into the moments that shaped our world, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Drop a comment below and tell me, do you see any similarities between 1929 and today's economy? I read every single comment, and your insights matter. Share this video with someone who loves history or anyone who needs to understand that even in our darkest moments, humanity finds a way to survive and rebuild. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.